density with osteopenia and osteoporosis, where that actually increases your bone mass density. And then in general, whether yoga is good for somebody with osteoporosis. That was quite interesting.
Kind of similar to what I did.
All the information really sort of leads to the same thing. So there's lots of it, and it generally goes in the same direction, which is great.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
How did the research projects go?
Good.
Good. Okay, I'm not expecting a thesis. Well, I know Ava's probably given me one. Where is Ava? She's not here yet. I'm not expecting, I don't know how many of you have sent them in already, quite a few, I think. But I'm not expecting you to, I'm more interested in you learning how to question than I am about what you conclude. Because you can't conclude anything. I think it was Cara was saying you can't, you know, without actually, first of all, buying the whole paper, because most of it's abstract anyway that you're reading. And second of all, even if you bought the whole paper, you wouldn't understand it, you know, because we don't understand statistics. You have to be somebody like Ava who can look and go, okay, their stats is good, you know, so that's why it's really beneficial to look at systematic, any review, because they kind of done the job for you. So I'm only interested in you. I want to take you from a place of Google search, is yoga good for osteoporosis? Yes, 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 yes. And you believing it, to a place of, is Google's pretty much all opinion. So is it true? That's what I'm looking for, okay? It's nothing dramatic. It's just so that in the future as teachers, when you go out there, if you look something up on behalf of yourself or a client, that if you get Google results, that maybe you will question them and not immediately rush off and try and address some injury or therapy or, you know, a classic one, Tegan's doing yoga and anxiety. And most people think, generally out there, if I question 200 art teachers, they think that restorative yoga is really good for anxiety. And it's really not. In fact, it's probably the opposite. So, but if you Google restorative yoga and anxiety, it's going to come up with, yes, it's good. Because I'm hoping that you guys have realized that pretty much Google says yoga is good for everything. Right? If you go onto Yoga Journal, yoga is good for everything, no matter what it is, from ADHD to autism to anxiety to osteoporosis to heart disease to pretty much. And it's not. It can be helpful in certain ways, but there's a lot of claims out there. So that's all I'm interested in, is that you've dug around and gone, oh wait, hang on a second, a load of people said this and a load of people said that, and maybe that's not true. And how do they know? You know, how do you know? You know, what's a good site to go to? Where do you go and get that information? So that's really all I'm looking for. Okay, I'm not looking for 100 pages. Where's Ava? I'm sure she's given me 100 pages that I'm not going to understand. So I've put aside 3 hours to have a read through her thing she's done on nerve flossing. All right. So can we please talk about downward dog and sort this out once and for all? Okay. All right. So I got quite a few videos from you guys sort of working through downward dog. Some understanding and some not. Okay, so the videos of Laura and I, very different shoulders, okay? Just in the general viewpoint, Laura's shoulders are way wider proportionally than mine. I don't know if you could see that. When I take my arm directly up, it's right close to my ear. When Laura, I cannot have my arm straight up and have this big gap. I just can't. It just doesn't work like that. I'm very narrow. Laura, proportionally, is very wide in the shoulders. So she's got a lot more room to maneuver. What happens? So this is the thing that I figured out last week, is that you guys are confusing, not all of you, the push and the pull, okay? What happens when you go back, when Laura's, because I can do it a little bit, what happens when I go into what you guys are calling full push in downward dog? What's the shape that you're seeing? Kagan.
It's flexion.
We're finding the shape is a back bend.
The shape is a back bend, right? Does everybody understand that? But you guys are describing that as push. That's not, in terms of scapular shoulder, that's not a push. What is it? Tegan, Caro?
I'll let Cara go.
Caro, in case it's wrong. Go, Caro.
Well, it's like retraction, no?
It's retraction, but in terms of, yes, absolutely, because in a back bend, some of us can we're going back like this, right? So our scapula is trying to draw back. Some of us may be able to draw it much further back than others. But what is the action that we're feeling? Because we're talking, if we do this, what is that? That action? Push, right? What is the action that we're doing when we're in that scapular retraction? Tegan.
It's pull. So I think you said it's pull chest to thighs or pull ribs to thighs.
So imagine if I'm on a wall here right now. So if I go, can you guys see me? If I'm in the wall and I go push, okay? That's a push action. But what you're seeing in downward dog that you think is a push action is me doing this, right? Half Adho Mukha on the wall, I'm hanging in my arms. Does everybody understand that, right? So that's a pull, it's not a push, okay? So generally, what is happening when you guys go to fix people in downward dog is you're trying to fix that. Am I right? Is that your experience? Caro, because I know you were confused about this. Are you trying to fix the hanging and the way you sort of Laura's, her shoulders roll in like that? Can Caro hear me? I don't think she can.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm usually not trying to fix the hanging in the shoulders. Like, to me, this is like a different thing than the space.
Okay, but why this is what I'm saying. So what happens when our scapula retract? So when you're moving, you're pulling back and you're coming into a back bend, what's happening to the space? If I do this, draw your shoulder blades together. As you're sitting there, draw your shoulder blades together. What happens to the space? And what happens to this space when I do this?
But this is different than this.
No, but where is that coming from, though? Where is that coming from? So think about it. This is why you have to be very careful with this in terms of adjustment. If you are hanging in a downward dog, you're pulling, right? Your scapula are retracting, and you can see it here. If I do it now, my scapula retract, and see my hair. And what's happening to here? What is this action? Right? Internal rotation. But how high up do my shoulders go in internal rotation? Can you see? Right? So I need you to, I won't pass you guys if you don't understand this. This is like basic stuff. This is like downward dog. You guys, I need feedback from you before the end of the week. You need to understand it. So you look at the videos of Laura. She literally, it's perfectly done. Her scapula draw in because the scapula, the shoulder blade and the arm bone are connected, right? You cannot move one without the other. Our scapula move a lot. Look, they do big gross movements. External and internal rotation is a tiny, tiny little movement, right? When you guys correct people for that spreading and the shoulder down, you are correcting them to protraction. You're bringing them from retraction this to this and a bit of a relaxation in the shoulders, okay? You cannot physically, it's dangerous to physically adjust somebody who's in retraction, internal rotation, to take just their shoulders and bring them forward like this if you are just trying to correct external rotation. That causes problems in the shoulders. What are you actually trying to correct? You're trying to create protraction. So when you saw Laura, she's hanging in the shoulders are up in her ears, right? Then she moves forward. I described it as a reset. What happens to her shoulder blades? They're dead.
They protract.
They protract. But why do they protract? What is making them protract? Why is it moving from retraction to protraction? She's not engaging anything. She's not going, I want to wrap my shoulder blades around. What is the simple action that's just allowing her shoulder blades to protract? Taryn.
Is it maybe that she's going from the pulling then to more of a pushing action? So then when you're pushing, it's protracting.
So she's going from the pulling to not necessarily pushing action, because we haven't even got to pushing yet. Okay, so I know it's really complicated. Okay, so if I'm in, and I beg your pardon, I'm not the biggest backbender, as you can see. Okay, if I'm in, let me sit down. Okay, there's a normal shoulder flexion. There's my downward dog hanging in the shoulder flexion, right? That all of you think is increased shoulder flexion. But what is it? Sorry, I can't do anything too much. What is actually, what joint is moving to make it look like this, the dead?
It's spinal extension.
Spinal extension. So when she comes forward, that happens. She moves. I can't retract, I beg your pardon, I'm just not, she's so much better an example, because she can actually really retract her shoulder blades, and she does this internal, my shoulder's just stuck wherever I go, pretty much, okay? So the action of her, and all of you did it, and Cara, you did it in your own video of yourself. You didn't know you were doing it, but it just happened. So the action of hanging, say, even if your shoulders are up there, spinal extension, you come forward, more space, your shoulders protract a little bit more. Then there's an action on top if you choose to create more shoulder flexion, but not an act of a push. Okay? They're three completely different things. Okay? I need you to understand this. You need to process it. Claire and Vedette went through all of these different things, and they're like, no, I get it. The reason I need you to get it is not so you understand and can quote anatomy, is that you understand that almost every person we get that's been on any 200 hour talks about the correction of external rotation. This is not correct, okay? This is not, okay, did you all see the picture of Anya? Where's Anya? Anya. Yeah, did you see the picture of Anya's arms? What would I correct in Anya's arms? Her arms are like that, okay? She's internally rotating, bent arms, and that's kind of, I'm exaggerating, Anya, so just for effect, okay? You really don't look like that. But, and then she goes into a downward dog, and they look exactly the same. She's in internal rotation. She's got, so how many of you figured out you've got a carrying angle? Bedos, Caro, Taryn, anybody else? Vedette, yes, you've got a carrying angle, Vedette. Like, okay, look at my carrying angle. Okay, it's really common in yoga, it's common in women, right? Elbows together. Everybody stand up and show me your elbows together. I want to see, because I'd make you do this live. Yeah, look at Caro's. Whoa, nice carrying angle. I love a good carrying angle. Oh, Claire, look at Claire's radical carrying angle. Fidos, Sandra's carrying. Look at Sandra. Oh, look at that. That's a hectic carrying angle. Taryn's got a carrying angle. Juliet, not as much. A little bit of one. Goodness me. Ashton, wow. Roxy doesn't have one, and I can't see Mandana, and Janine very little. Okay, so we're looking at, I would say 60–70% of you have got significant carrying angles. Okay, what does that mean in terms of, and the only reason I even want you guys to know this is because if we go to this thing that we have to literally externally rotate the shoulders, as in the GH joint, not the scapula, GH joint, what will happen with somebody who's got a carrying angle? So 60% of you, at least, what will happen? It's in the videos. Videos.
Will it make your arms bend more and then you'll end up hanging even more?
Okay, so a carrying angle, this shape, Tegan, do you want to answer?
I think I'm off. I'm just thinking about the hyperextension in the elbows.
Okay, so
I don't know if that has to do with
hyperextension on different things, but often go together. Okay, and most of the time yoga teachers can't tell which one's which, right? So carrying angle, this where you go there, makes people's arms look kind of bent from the side. What is happening in a carrying angle is your forearm is much more externally rotated than, I was going to say generally a guy's, but Ashton's got a hectic carrying angle. Okay, so I don't know if you saw the videos, but I can keep my elbow, I can do it, literally turn my elbow up regardless of whether my hand is down or not. So if we're looking at the, the elbow crease that we're talking about, okay? Because that's the shape of my bone. So it's like, and go like that. That's what my, oh, wrong way around, sorry. That's what my arm is shaped like, okay? Not like this, like this. It's fixed like that. So are 60–70% of yours, right? What it means is that the bottom arm is much more externally rotated, but yoga teachers come along and go, oh, no, it looks like, because the bottom arm is externally rotated, and this is really complicated, so I don't expect you to know this so deeply, okay? It looks like your shoulders are not externally rotated, relatively, because yoga teachers want it to look like that, okay? So they come and they turn this joint around. So what I want you to do now is put your arms out like this, okay? Without, we'll talk about the waving thing just now, okay? Fix your wrist, your elbow, your shoulder. So only your shoulder moves. Externally rotate. No, don't move your hands. Just from the shoulder. Just from the shoulder. Can you? No. Can you?
I can.
No,
I can.
you're moving your forearms.
No, I'm not.
Okay, do it now. I can't see, Janine, because you've got your jacket on. Is it easy to externally rotate there? No. Okay? It's a tiny movement. What we want in yoga for what we think of is a movement of ease in downward dog, right? We want people to feel easy, and we don't really want them with their shoulders shrugged up. I don't mind that because now I'm so strong in the upper traps, and sometimes I really love the push that people do. We want that sense of ease, broadness across the shoulder, okay? That I get, that's absolutely fine. But it does not come from external rotation, which is this. Take your arm out to the side and just roll it inwards and outwards. Is it changing my shoulders at all? Yeah. No.
No.
It's not its job, okay? It's a stability muscle. It's not its job, okay? What we want is that protraction and relaxation of the shoulders. And normally we can get people to do that by doing one thing that's in those videos where you see Laura hanging and then she comes to a point where she's not hanging and not in a back bend. Tegan, Vidette.
I don't have my hand up.
Oh, sorry, I thought you did. Vidette, for those as well.
I'm thinking it's got to do with the pushing.
Okay, so no, it doesn't. That's like, so that's trying to point out that there's three. Sorry, I didn't mean to say no like that. Yeah, but I mean, no, it's what I mean by no is that it's so much easier than that. The person is in a back bend. The person is normally in a back bend, internally rotating. This moves their shoulders up. Sorry, Vidette.
No, I think it's just coming out of less flexion, shoulder flexion. Is it not just shifting slightly forward? No, it's still not.
You guys think that the people are in more shoulder flexion in the back bend and in the downward dog back bend. There may be a few people, because I never like to say never, that are, but what they're not in more shoulder flexion. They've gone to end range. Bang, there's their jab, right? Am I in more shoulder flexion?
No, back.
No, I'm in. What am I in?
Spinal extension.
Extension.
We bring it back to Pinchamayurasana with the balancing and stuff. When I think it was Vidette was saying, she's just getting that bent like this, less shoulder flexion, right? The load is over here, not over here. So this is why we do this in Pinchamayurasana to balance. So to get somebody from doing this to a point where they're not hanging in the end range joint, what would we do? Hurry up, I don't want to stay here.
So less spinal extension.
Yes,
or hug the ribs.
Would we cue that?
Oh, hug the ribs in.
Just come forward a bit.
Come forward, yeah.
How would you cue it in Hastasana if somebody was doing that?
Draw your ribs to pubic bone.
Or you can say, come a bit forward. In fact, if you want to adjust, you can actually just literally touch them and say, with one finger even, and say, come a little bit forward. The minute that they come forward, their scapula leaves retraction, okay, moves into protraction without you externally rotating their arm bone. And then if they're still doing that, which most of the time they're not, but if they're still doing that, you can just put your hands here and just go, relax. Does that make sense? Roxy, you wanted to say something?
Yes, it doesn't really make sense. I'm confused why retraction is so bad. Why is it bad to be in retraction in down dog?
I don't think it's bad at all, but generally in a yoga class, some people might feel, because we've talked about this, people haven't loaded in a certain way. And when people load at end range joints in terms of a pulling action, it can lead to them feeling kind of pinched and up here and a little bit uncomfortable. So it really depends on the person, you know, so people want this sense of space not people, teachers want the sense of space away from the ears. That's generally what we want. To me, to be honest with you, I think we should be able to retract in downward dog, because then what do we do in wild thing? You know, we go immediately into retraction and more hanging in the shoulders. So I think, so Roxy, I totally agree with you. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I also understand that teachers sometimes want that sense of space. I would want everybody to be able to do it all. And for me, what's actually much more important is to be able to push, to actually protract, to get really strong for everything else. Because even that reset, that middle range, is still incredibly difficult for people to hold because they haven't trained to do it yet. So it's like everything. We talked about Titibhasana, Bakasana, and all there's spectrums of these things, like progressively loading Mayurasana. You know, there's spectrums of these things. None of them are wrong, but it's what my bee in my bonnet is about this one is you can injure somebody by getting, if they've got full load, bang, on their arms, and you come and do this, do me a favor, do it now. Put your arm up, right? You've got no load on it. Take hold of this and now rotate it. But pretend it's fixed. What can you do? Not much, right? Take it up a little bit higher, not full, so you can get in there. And now rotate it. How much can you do? Give me feedback.
There's a little bit more rotation with the arm up top. This is here.
A little bit more rotation. But what you're doing, Tegan, there is, you know, because here's where it comes from. Not, you see how you're doing this?
Okay. Yeah, okay, I see. So that's the same, there's nothing.
Exactly. So this is protraction. This is you bringing the scapula around. The person, most people who've got their arms up are already in an external rotation anyway, okay? But this tiny little joint, it's, put your hand here now. Find the head of your arm bone. Dangle your arm, dangle it. You have to dangle it. And now just, if you see me, just do this. Can you feel it moving a little bit? Can you feel the head of your arm? That's all it moves. Is it moving anything else? Like any other bit of your shoulder? So when they teach you how to strengthen external rotators, this is how far you can go. That's it. Okay? It's only 45 degrees. If you go here, it becomes scapular retraction, which is a totally different thing. Do we understand this? So my suggestion to you is if people are feeling pinching, first of all, look, are they hanging, pulling, okay? Are they hanging? So if they're hanging, come forward a little bit. Watch what happens to their scapula. Maybe their scapula goes, maybe they're then still going, but ooh, they've got space. Then you know it's because they're not used to loading, okay? If there's pinching going on, not used to loading, a whole load of other stuff happening there that is really a debate in the world out there, but mostly not used to loading, okay? So if the ears are up here and they're like, oh, I'm really sore, and you can get them to do this, okay? I mean, look at me, right? And I'm strong, I think, you know? So if I put my arm like this and you say you want space, what happens to my arm? What's this called? Scaption, okay? This is, my downward dog is gonna look like that, or my handstand will look like that, okay? But clearly it can't. I mean, it can, just for fun, but my arms would have to be super wide apart because you're insisting on me getting space. So we also have to be able to look at individuals. Like I've seen videos like, Cara, you quite narrow here in the shot compared to a lot of other people here. Anya's got totally the opposite shape going on, where she's very wide here, but then comes into a much more narrow point. For Dose, you very narrow here as well. So it just about, you can see those people that've got really broad shoulders, and I mean, they can be little, but they've still got broad shoulder, and they can just go bah, and they've got all this great space here. But sometimes it doesn't work. So but if we go in and then when someone's in a fixed position and take the head of their arm bone and go, it's not a good thing. It's protraction rather. Move them, say, come out a little bit. Does that feel better? You know, watch their shoulder blades, look at what's going on with the actual shoulder blade. So I need you guys to understand that a lot, actually. Not just in the terms of the who's externally rotating when, but to be able to look at the shoulder blades and look at what's happening and look at why you want things and understand that that might not be the healthiest thing to do. On our 200 hours, I don't know if I've told you this, I've got to send you the adjustment questions this afternoon. On our 200 hours, they all want to adjust, like that's just it, like immediately, 1 week in. I've had complaints because we don't bring adjustments in after 1 week. I'm like, you just what you're doing. It's like, well, so towards the end of it, we start bringing in adjustments. And my key is, and stop me if I've told you guys this, is that I choose 4 people or whatever, 4 people from the group, make them lie down on their back, do Supta Paramgustasana. I know who I'm choosing. Then I ask the room, who would you adjust? The simplest pose in the world where you can't hurt somebody unless you push them in. Which person would you adjust? And they don't know because they can't see yet what is going on. And what I want you to understand from all of this downward dog stuff, and we're going to, I must just check the time. Oh, still a bit of time. Is that there is so much going on, loaded. And for most people, loaded in a way that they have not loaded before. It's brand new, right? For most people that come into yoga, okay? To go in there and to physically and adjust things is, you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to be able to look at the person and go, ah, I can see what's going on. So my suggestion to you guys would be to use other things first. Like if they're hanging and they're pinching, say, come forward a little bit. Like you don't even have to touch them. Come forward a little bit. Does that feel better? Yeah, that's great. No, it doesn't. I'm still like pinching up. Can you relax yourself? Is the person really narrow here? If I take their arms out wider, does it help? If it's narrow, does it help? Those kind of things. But not to tick these boxes, which is wrist crease, inner elbows facing towards each other or whichever way you've been taught, and external rotation. Okay? It's until we understand that, we can have those things as a guide for ourselves, but we can't go in and then physically move people through a little rotation, like external, internal rotation. How would you get somebody in plank if they were in, say you wanted them in more of a push, you were teaching Bakasana, more of a push plank. How would you get them from a retracted plank, so almost just before Chaturanga, into a protracted plank? Lauren?
I would say push the ground away or push up between your shoulder blades.
Push the ground away, push between your shoulder blades, all of those things. Or you could lightly tap them on the back and say, push into my hand. You know, and conversely, if you want them to drop, you just go, drop a little bit, come up. So come up, come down. Those kind of things, which we can do in downward dog. We say, come forward a little bit, go back a little bit, make your dog a long dog, because now we know that in a long dog, what is loaded more in a long dog? The back of you or the front of you?
Front of you.
Front of you, okay? So we know if somebody's shoulders are sore, if they're in a really long dog, that might not be so great. If somebody's hamstrings are a little bit not so flexy, that making them actually do a shorter dog is going to actually put more pressure on their hamstrings. So it's like figuring simple stuff out. Claire, sorry. Roxy, you've got your hand up too. I wasn't sure if it was before. So sorry, Roxy first, then Claire.
It all makes sense now. I just wanted to also clear one of the cue that a lot of teachers use is like, when you are in down dog, they keep saying, push your chest towards your thighs. So obviously that is accentuating your retraction. Keep saying, push your chest towards your thighs. I don't know if you heard that. So obviously that is kind of wrong then, because you want to find the middle ground between retraction and protraction.
I think it's exactly what you said earlier, is that it depends why you're teaching it. So
Okay.
I would teach downward dog as a back bend to a group of people that I understood could do that, because we've been teaching back bends, and I think, oh, why not? You know, like if we're moving into wild thing, all of those things, but I would do it like that. But chest to your thighs is going to bring you into more spinal extension normally, and that means slight retraction of the scapula for most people. Not everybody can move into it, but. And then also, if we go back to Roxy's thing from last week, the cookie jar thing, okay? The cookie jar thing, external rotation's cue, but because it's not actually, you're not coming around and fiddling with somebody, keeping their scapula where they are, and then trying to externally rotate them. The cookie jar thing is going to do what? Put your arms out.
Externally rotate. It's
not externally rotating. What's the cookie jar thing doing to my scapula?
Retraction.
Oh. We'll get there. More movements left.
Protracting the shoulders.
It's protracting. So put your hand on your scapula and cookie jar. It's bringing your protraction forward.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And that's what you kind of, that's what a lot of teachers are looking for. Okay, it's that protractor thing. They just don't know that it's protraction and upward rotation in those things. Okay, but the external rotation thing only has entered yoga because of the talk around injury. It's a whole long topic, which I don't really want to waste time about. If you want to talk about it personally, then we'll send me messages, we can chat, because we've got no time left. So the external rotation got brought into yoga because it was thought that if you don't externally rotate in anything to do with your arms, you are going to injure. Okay, that's where external rotation comes from. But what we're doing is we are upwardly rotating, whichever way we do, are upwardly rotating, and our scapula is wrapping around slightly. In a plank, we can push more and we can protract even more. Okay, but that's what's coming from. And if you want that even thing, you need to create protraction, which means come forward, come out of your retracted spinal thing, and then maybe just relax, you know, just come out of this, come forward, and then, I mean, my arms go out, so it won't work with me. You're not going to get me right. Okay, so it's just, and then a sense of ease down. But remember, there's going to be no sense of ease really in a downward dog that you're holding unless you've got strong enough to hold a downward dog. Okay, so you can go and think, oh, I want to create all of this sense of ease, but there is no ease because you're in downward dog. So I don't know if you can remember when you first started yoga and your first 5-second downward dog, right, times 10. And you're like, please make this stop now. It's really hard, whether you're in retraction, whether you're in reset, protraction mode, or push mode. It's hard because, you know, like I always say, the only time we ever take our arms overhead is to undo a light bulb. And even then we say, oh, that's tiring, and come down, and then we load it. Okay, so the point is we go back to progressive loading, back to something that Roxy's saying as well, is that if you want to be in a backbended type downward dog, and if you teach wild thing, then you shouldn't think that that backbended downward dog is wrong, because it's the same as wild thing. Well, let's put it like this. What are the shoulders doing in Urdhva Dhanurasana if we're so worried about down dog? Lauren, I don't know if you've got your arm up or you're playing.
Catherine, could you repeat the question, please?
I can. What are the shoulders doing in Urdhva Dhanurasana in wheel that relates very strongly to downward dog, except we don't seem to be worried about it, which is very typical yoga? Taryn.
Well, aren't they retracting a lot because you now going into a back bend and they're coming together?
Yes, they're coming together for some people more than others. And what are our shoulders doing?
Flexion.
Shoulder flexion. Sound
flexion.
It's like shoulder flexion,
rotation.
And then what else are your shoulders doing in downward dog that we don't go, ooh, relax your shoulders away from your ears? I'm not in down dog, in Urdhva Dhanurasana, in wheel.
Upward rotation?
Do we, exactly. Well, you have to upwardly rotate to get your arms up. I mean, that you can't do. That was the beginning kind of chat about it. If you draw the shoulder blades down, not together or apart, but down, keep them down on your back, you're going to bring the arm down. Okay, you cannot do it. Right. So upward rotation in shoulder flexion, Urdhva Dhanurasana. As much shoulder flexion as we possibly can get, right? Except for the very, very, very epic backbenders of the world. Most of us are really trying to get it because it's helpful, okay? Shoulders will do whatever the hell they want to do, whether they're retracting massively like Laura's or a wee bit like mine, okay? So, and where are my traps going to be?
By your ears.
By my ears.
Up.
Right? Why?
Because you bring your hand over your head.
But what do I have to do in Urdhva Dhanurasana?
We have to push.
So Urdhva Dhanurasana, to get up in Urdhva Dhanurasana, it's like a kind of backwards push-up, right? I've got to push my whole, so if I haven't got a weight here, but if I've got just imagine the weight, because glass isn't going to work, all right? A weight here on my arm, and I want my arm to go up, which is downward dog, which is Urdhva Dhanurasana. How do I get, if I've got a 15K weight in there, how am I going to get, what muscle is going to be working related to yoga to get my arm up there? Tegan.
Your traps? Your traps?
Pretty much. My traps have to work to push me up and push up the 15K times 2 weight to get up there. So then do we cue, then relax the shoulders? No. It would be, so what about in a handstand?
You're also pushing.
Also pushing, okay? Not as much, definitely if you were doing a handstand push-up, then some big time pushing, but definitely in order to stay up there, our upper traps are on, working hard, because actually in yoga, we do a lot of stuff with our upper trap muscles, but we're always telling people to relax them. And there's nothing wrong with relaxing them. Giving space is just another thing, right? But then we can't tell them to give space in down dog and then not tell them to give space in Urdhva Dhanurasana. That makes no sense to me. Tegan.
I just have a question on this then, because in handstands, I've got this cue in my head. So in handstands, as soon as I come up, the first thing I go is like, take your shoulders away from the ears. And then as soon as I try hold, I just come out because I'm doing all that. So do you think in this position, especially thinking of handstands, should we just stay?
Look,
instead of like try to take it away and all of that.
Things going on in handstands, but as a rule, 90% of people, when you put your hands on the ground, whether you're doing a handstand from a standing to a forward, or you've just got your hands on the ground, your arms and shoulders should be locked. Bang, rigid, like a dead straight, rigid, rock solid thing, whatever that means for your body. You know, Anya's arms like that are going to be very different from mine, but locked, okay? Regardless of hyperextension, carrying angles, what's going on in your shoulders, okay? Locked. And then a whole load of grip strength going on. But for very, very backbendy people, there is an instruction, and it complicates things a little bit. So, and it would not work for the majority of this group, except for the big backbenders. So for someone like Tegan, who is a big backbender, and Emma as well, I would instruct for them to sink, but to sink before you kick up. So that, to actually sink. So to create what we call a broad shelf across the shoulder, but you need to do it before. you go up, not whilst you're up there, because when you're up there, this happens a lot. So this sink, and that sometimes creates a nice level of stability for the big backbenders who are, you know, I mean, you and Emma as well, you are like little snakes up in the air like that. So that's a different thing. But a lot, Claire.
But don't you find that comes actually back to language? Because the idea of relaxation, what yoga teachers mean by relax versus what people think relax means. Because like I was talking about in pincher, you know, I get my elbow up and then I push like a mother trucker and then it ends up hurting my shoulder. Whereas if I had to relax or actually just come to that middle point of, you know, effort, but not going so hard that I'm like overexerting. So like Tegan, instead of trying to be up here, you're going into that middle point of you're definitely pushing, but you're not pushing kind of thing. And that's the problem, because people say relax and people go, oh, nothing, no effort. But actually your meaning, like you said, Catherine, it's pull back a bit. Don't, it's not a relaxation, it's a balance point.
Think about it much more as just joints. You know, it's just range of motions, and you know, all you guys know, you've got totally different range of motions. You've all explored and found out bits and pieces about yourself, and that it's the same thing as looking at something like Mayurasana or whatever the case may be. It's like, who am I? What length am I? What are my shoulders doing? Do I have a carrying angle? How much do I have to lean forward? And it's the same thing in, you know, so I saw you, Claire, and what you did was you stretched out your triceps a little bit when you were doing Pinch Mayurasana, okay? So I don't think it was so much a relaxation. I think you gave yourself a little bit more range, but I only looked at it quickly, so I'd have to have a look. But definitely, so for me, because I do so much strength work, that for me to do Pinch Mayurasana comfortably, I always mess around. I warm up my triceps. And then it's like, yeah, no, fine. Okay, but it just depends on you. It really just depends on you. But downward dog, like Roxy says, can be done as a back bend, or, I mean, think about it in terms of a whole movement. So moving from plank really slowly back into a downward dog. So you're just changing your shape, just changing shoulder flexion angle into a kind of suspended head on the floor downward dog. Okay, it's just a range of your shoulder joint, and how tolerant you are of that depends not on your, well, it does depend on your joints, but it depends on how strong you are in those positions. Okay, so beginners might just be strong in a kind of plank first, and down dog might just be tough because their upper traps aren't ready for it yet. For the big back benders who can hang their head on the ground, I mean, Roxy's videos are amazing. Roxy kicks up into her handstand, like really happy like this. And then literally, this is what happens, but now not so much anymore. Now she's balancing, but she kicks up into handstand, falls into a back bend and stands up. Like literally, like I said, and then you hear her going, whoops, bang, and she goes, and then she stands up. Like literally it's just like this. And she, oh, I'm up again, kick, doing. And so I'm looking at, you know, Cara and Claire and Roxy and Fido and whatever, and you're all just very different. And it's all just different ranges. So Roxy's shoulder flexion is also way back there, and her back will bend given any opportunity at all over. So we had to work in a different, what else is going on? Let's try and contain it a little bit more. So it's much more around just looking at how people work and not going with one, especially something like external rotation instruction, which is not a great adjustment anyway, best of times. Most of the time yoga teachers don't know, can't recognize it, and can't recognize the chain of the arms. And then also, like I said, you go, we don't adjust it. It's fine if you've got a beginner's class and you're not doing Urdhva and handstand, you're not doing wild thing, and you're not doing Vashisthasana, and you're not doing all of those things, and you're exploring around down dog, then I absolutely would try to get people to some kind of their mid-range, which will look very different, because they're just not going to be used to it yet. So I don't really want them hanging. But then immediately like this, you'll see a natural backbender and they will hang through the range. And then if you want them up, you can. But then I think for me, it's more of a sense of alignment then, of just like, and you know, people should be able to move in all different ranges. That would be great, you know, as much as you possibly can. Does that make a little bit of sense? Okay, quickly, before I think we've got like 15 minutes yet. So what I want to ask you is this. Waving, okay, right. So when we tell people in downward dog to turn the hands out, what is this helpful for? Why do we do it, first of all? I love that you're all doing this. Tegan, why do we do it? We say, people, turn your hands out.
I think it's to give the shoulder more space.
It's again, it's the external rotation thing. But do you all understand? You can see me here, that I can do this. I can turn my hand up, but it does not affect my shoulder at all. Do you understand? Does everybody get that? Okay, look. I mean, you can just look. Do it yourself. Put your hand on your shoulder and just turn your hand a little bit. Does everybody understand that? So that instruction in terms of the giving space thing doesn't work, right? What is it helpful for? Firdaus?
I found when I turned the hands out in plank, I could lean way further forward. So I think it could be helpful for allowing you to come further.
Exactly. So, and does everybody understand that? So that's ulnar deviation. You've got space. Okay, it's not literal space. It just means the radius side of you has got bone crashing into bone, right? The ulnar side has got a little bit of it's got mushy stuff in between two bones, right? So you can squish mushy stuff, right? You can't squish bone, right? You're just going to stop. So it's a simple thing, and it can be useful for people who are feeling a little bit compressive in the wrists, going, oh, turn your hands out. It's a great instruction. Okay, but does everybody understand that it doesn't, if you do it in downward dog and I just do this, it's not going to change my shoulders. Does everybody get it? If you don't, say so or send me a message, right? It doesn't change your shoulders. Okay, what do I have to do to change my shoulders besides all this? If you want a different placement, what do I have to do to change somebody's shoulders? I don't know what that was, Claire, but can you just say what you were doing? Because you did a lot of things.
You just moved on. If you want to.
This is going to give me more space. Okay, and frequently a lot of people, I'm sure you guys have all seen it, come in and they've got their hands really close together, and that can be a little bit internally rotating, pinching shoulders, blah. You can have them take their arms apart. If it's helpful for them, that's really great. But the waving hand thing doesn't work, okay? As long as you all get that, right? But it is super useful to see how far you can go forward in a plank. You can almost like lift your feet up, you know. So there's a lot of stuff like that. So it's very, very helpful for arm balances as well. So if people are like a little bit wrist loady, to have them slightly turn their hands up, because generally most people, not everyone, can lean a little bit further forward. It doesn't mean stuff's not getting squished. It just gives you more range of motion because there's just no bone in the way. Okay, make sense? Okay, all right, right. And the last thing, okay, and this is all the downward dog chain. What are my forearms doing in downward dog?
Pronating.
Pronating. What does that mean? So, everybody put your arm up like this. Where's your elbow facing? I mean, you're in a crease of your elbow when you just have your arms like this in downward dog. Caro, I can see Sandra's pointing. It's somewhere up there. Yeah, Caro?
Mine are facing toward one another.
Yours face towards one another. Sandra's are facing up. Mine face up. Oh, the Vedette's doing that, so it's much more of an up thing. Anya, where are yours facing? Like this.
Yeah, kind of.
The toes will be facing slightly down. But can you see the general thing? Okay, the more you've got a carrying angle, more this is. I can literally. It's so difficult for you to see. Can you see my inner crease is facing up, directly up? Does everybody understand that? Okay, can you see it's not facing that way or even that way? It's facing up, and my arms are in downward dog. Okay. Because of my carrying angle, right? And the bend of my arms, this kind of shape. It just looks like that. So again, it's a guide, inner creases facing each other. But if I make my inner creases face each other, what's happening to my shoulders? So I go from normal, which is up. What happens to my shoulder?
It's internally rotating.
Yeah, it's rolling. I'm rolling inwards because of that. And you can see my hand has to turn as well for me to be able to do that. It's really hard, actually, and it hurts a little bit. But can you see that all of these things are guides? So downward dog is like a massively complex thing. But again, nobody will go to me in a handstand and say, make your inner elbows face direct. No one comes to me in Urdhva and says, make your elbows face each other, the inner elbows forward. And why wouldn't they? Because it's the same thing and it's more load. I mean, exactly the same shape. Claire?
Okay, so even though we're already learning, I'm getting confirmation here because I was actually, my elbow faces forward now because I was trained, my teacher trained me to get the elbow facing forward. Is there a benefit to that, or was that just a lousy sort of cue?
Look, I think, I think yoga teachers have got this, in my mind, there's two sets of cues. One is kind of alignment as in placement cues that I think are crucial, otherwise we wouldn't be able to teach yoga, right? And the other cues are kind of to prevent injury cues. And it's the prevent injury cues that get me. Like, I don't care where your foot, if you want a warrior one, you need to be able to tell people, put your foot that way, have your knee that way, have your arms straight, because it's not warrior one, warrior two. That's a warrior two, right? And it's the same in downward dog. We don't want people like flopping about or making a round up. We want, well, either an Ashtanga downward dog, a little bit shorter or a little bit longer downward dog, but it's a down dog. So I don't know what cue that was, so because I can't speak for your teacher. So if it's an injury-based cue, it's useless, right? Because I can do that without moving my arm. It's just because my bones are fixed in a shape like that. But if it's trying to just get a general class to all have straight arms, but I still think the cue straight arms might work better. Straight arms, come a little bit forward, ribs in, spread your shoulders, maybe relax your ears if that's your intention. So I don't know, Claire, is the long and short of that. It's just that the cues to externally rotate, inner elbows, or whatever. If you're trying to create a shape, then that's fine. But I think they're better cues, more simple cues, to actually get sort of what you want, whether it's a Roxy back bend or a Caro more relaxed thing, whatever, they're all fine. It's just you can't cue around external rotation or cue around you must have your, I mean, imagine if we said to Anya, you must have your inner elbows facing forward. I mean, facing each other or upwards. She would never come back to yoga again. And so Anya's got carrying angle is valgus, and I think Anya's got what's called varus. So it happens in the hips as well. It's just different shapes. So it's like, remember in the legs, we talked about X legs and O legs. And that's what happens in people's arms. The same thing. My arms are X arms. They sort of, it's like knock knees. When your knees roll in, when your leg. And Anya's is more of a bow shape. So it'd be more like a bandy shape of the leg. And it just means different results. And I think probably you find that half of the world has got O shape and half has got X shape. And it is what it is. So I don't know, Claire, I would ask your teacher.
No, but it's more about, so again, I'm like debunking myths, because I know why my teacher does it. I suppose it would be injury, but it's also thinking alignment, the correct way to do one's arm, because this is how I'm supposed to do plank and down dog, and in fact anywhere where my arms are, even in Hastasana, keeps on focusing on these elbows being out. But would you actually cue whether people should do anything with their elbows, or would you just leave them alone and you're either, cueing whatever other shape you're doing, but you're not actually telling people rotate your elbow in this direction or that direction? Because does it actually serve a purpose?
Wrap triceps, inner elbows, turning out hands. I would cue shoulder blades. I would cue the big movements. And I walk past people and just tap spread your shoulder. A simple thing, come a little bit forward. I know that I can say to most people, come a little bit forward, and their shoulder blades do this. So I wouldn't be cueing these nitpicky little things that I know. First of all, the wrists work independently. Our forearms can pronate and supinate independently of anything happening to the shoulder. You're not going to get an injury and an elbow in downward dog unless you've got one outside. So if I wanted that relaxed kind of thing, I'd say, depending on the person, come forward a little bit. Come out of, slightly retract to the shoulders. The minute you come forward, you're going to move. They're going to move to that retract thing. Then I might say, if I wanted that, it was like a big, beginner's cut, relax your shoulders. But it's all just too dramatic. And it doesn't work because you've just seen in this little group here, everybody is so different. And 60% of us have got a carrying angle. So we are never going to be able to have the inner elbows facing each other. Okay, without rolling in. It's just the way the bones work. So I just think we trip ourselves up, but I totally get that some, teachers want relaxed shoulders. Sometimes teachers want more of a back bend. It's all good, but then we need to cue gross movements, joint movements, but not in shoulder flex, but actually change the shape, the joints. Move forward, move backwards, see if you can hang your head down. Those big movements rather than the little kind of things that we all think are protective, maybe. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Okay, I think we are done. Any questions about anything? Or you're all fine for those?
Yeah, Catherine, are you gonna come see us again before we head off, or what's happening after this?
On Thursday, the 24th, I think, Laura and I got a session with you guys.
Thursday? Okay, so we will see you again.
Yeah, you'll see me on Thursday. I think it's Thursday, whatever the 24th is.
Okay.
Friday.
That day.
Friday.
Okay, so yeah, Laura and I will come on and say hi and stuff like that. And then in the meantime, you must let me know if there's stuff that's going, and I don't understand it. Quickly, how did I balance in Pinch Mayurasana? For those that actually managed to watch the video that I sent before. How? Janine?
You're not moving, you were moving your pelvis and your legs forward. No.
Sort of, but not quite. Almost. What was I moving forward? Anya?
Your legs and your feet. So you were, is it what, banana fix? Is that what you called it?
Yeah, so Vedette, Caro, and I can't remember how to say, they have banana-shaped pinchers, like mine is happily also a banana-shaped pincher. And in order to become more stacked, I have to leave the pelvis where it is and just take the legs to the balance. Because if I move the pelvis, which I did right at the end of it, if I move the pelvis with the legs, I fall out. So that's all I really want to do. I've got a whole load of other headstand ones, but I'm not going to bother sending them to you. Anya?
I just have a question about the adjustment questions or adjustment videos.
I'm going to email them to you this afternoon. It's such a general thing. It's Ava's done it before, maybe Cara as well. And Jenny Rowlings posted adjustment questions survey. ages and ages ago, and I find it quite a helpful thing for teachers to work through. So
I think the one that came in our first email, because there were some questions sent in that first email. Is it that?
Oh, was it? That's very efficient of me. Maybe. Will you
I
let
feel
me?
like
That was 2 months ago. Oh, wow.
Yeah, the one that says answer the questions, read Jenny Rowling's, note your thoughts, blah blah blah.
I sent it already, Anya. so basically,
I'll put it on the group.
Yeah, obviously I did put it in your first email, and thank you for that. So it's just literally, it's not a test, it's just questions around why you adjust, why you don't adjust, why you'd want to be adjusted. So it's your viewpoints as from a teaching perspective and a practitioner perspective, and I love both, because normally what ends up happening is what we want as practitioners is very different to what we do as teachers. But it's just an explore. We're not going to do actual live, proper adjustments. I make the 200 hours do them very gross, as in big adjustments, but I can't make you guys do it. It's too difficult. I'd have to get you to get students and then fine-tune stuff with you, which would be great if we were all together, but I can't see a way around it at this kind of level. Even something like Downward Dog, which we'd work on a lot in a big group and it's brilliant because we can see all sorts of different people. But I can't do that I just can't. If you can come up with an idea of how I can, then I'd like that. But it's probably the thing that we can't really do. Ginny?
Do you want us to then fill it out and send it to you, or is it just something that we need to look at for ourselves?
No, well, I think we've said send it to Laura, because she's talking to you about adjustments. I was going to talk to you about adjustments, I may, but I think I might, I don't know whether I'm going to be finished with all your research projects by then, because I figure it's going to take about 10 hours, so I'm a bit unsure, but I might hop on as well. It's just, you're already teachers, I can't help you do better adjustments, because adjustments are so fine-tuned, do you know what I mean? It's like you really have to see lots of different people and feel things, and yeah, whatever. So this is much more, email it to Laura. It's just like a very quick thing. If you don't have time to email it to Laura, please just read through it so there can actually be a chat. And then I think there's adjustment videos, and I really, really recommend that you watch that. And bear one thing in mind, is when I put that together, I put it together to be very pro about adjustments. And the pictures I came up with again and again, it was like, oh, I can't believe this is what the world's doing out there. That it's quite eye-opening. And I wasn't trying to find like the victims of the world, trying to stand on people. It's just what people are doing adjustment-wise. And it's kind of like, I think it's much more interesting at this level, you all teachers already, to have a debate around adjustments. Rather than, and especially online, I can't help you do individual adjustments anyway. I can give you advice, but that's about it. But just to think about, should we adjust, shouldn't we adjust, what are we adjusting, do we know how to adjust, what is going on, what happened? You'll see, if you haven't watched the videos already, they're quite like eye-opening stuff. And then just to have a conversation around it, really, that's it. So not a big drama either way. Unless you need some help with adjusting, then you can just send me a personal message, and then we can, I don't know, we can figure it out. Any other questions? No, you're all good. All right. Enjoy the rest of your week. I can't even remember what you've got tomorrow. You got Dale tomorrow. No, it's the next day.
Tomorrow's Carla.
Oh, you've got meditation, eh? Or breath work or something like that. Okay, cool. Enjoy, and then, yeah, I'll let you know about your research project. Please know that it's going to take me a bit of time to get through them, okay? I'm going to start this afternoon, but I'll get to you quickly. All right. Okay, bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.